All right, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is Animation Evolution, from pitch to production. We are going soup to nuts today. My name is Jennifer. Hello. We are business of creating. Everybody, first things first. While we have a moment when we're doing our introductions, everybody, this is you. Network and meet each other. We may be, sitting in our homes, sitting in our home offices or home gyms, but hey, please put who you are, go into the chat. Put your name, where you're from, what you do. We've had a lot of wonderful networking going on just by doing this. So yes, indeed, our whole point is let's make our creative industry stronger. So it's a collaborative process. So yes, please, good. Start putting in. Oh, I already love it. We already have 155 people. So put our information in the chat, get to know each other. Don't be shy. And note, we're going to be having the Q&A section open for Q&A. So yeah, chat probably going to get lost. So go for the Q&A. While you're introducing each other, everybody, the Writers Guild Foundation, a huge shout out. Thank you for hosting us today. A few words about the Writers Guild Foundation. Enid, do you want to tell more about yourselves?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. I'm Enid Portuguez, Director of Communications and Events at the Writers Guild Foundation. We're excited to partner with Business of Creating for another wonderful panel featuring entertainment executives. If you're new to the foundation, we are an LA-based nonprofit organization dedicated to the craft of writing for the screen. We offer services to the screenwriting community, such as a script library and archives, events with film and TV writers, and community outreach programs. For more info on what we do, please visit our website at wgfoundation.org and sign up for our weekly email newsletter with all our updates. We've got some great virtual panels coming up with writers from the CBS comedy United States of Al, as well as the FX series Pose. I'll throw those links in the chat as well. Thanks so much for supporting WGF, and we hope to see you at more events.
Enid, thank you so much. Everybody, we're very fortunate today to be partnering also with the BRIC Foundation. And good fortune is ours that Allison Mann is not only an expert in animation, but she's the co-founder of the BRIC Foundation. Allison, tell us more.
So BRIC was founded 3.5 years ago. Our mission is how do we create access points for women and or underrepresented groups that want to excel in creative leadership. But we have several arms of BRIC that we are working on strategically to help create healthy employment pipelines. So we are working with high school education. We have BRIC Creative Academy, where we work with inner city high school students. And we have a internship summer camp program with Downey School District this year. We're also working with the Department of Ed within the government sector to update the educational standards around art education. And then hopefully we'll create an apprenticeship that will have a certification that will lead to opportunities for people to go straight into the workforce rather than going to college straight out of school. And then we also have support for people going throughout their career, no matter where you're at, from entry level all the way to pivoting your career or parental units coming back into the workforce, whatever it is. We kind of have a catch-all for anybody who's interested in coming into the space. And BRIC isn't just about animation. We're about animation, VFX, gaming, tech, media, live action, but the majority of our focus is VFX, gaming, and animation. And then we also have a content coalition where we have a whole series called I Get Paid for This, where it's virtual digital job descriptions. And then we have our yearly summit. So every year we have a summit that is panels and workshops in one. We're going to be sharing out all of our findings from this last year's summit, which shows actionable items that you can do as an individual, what a group can do, and what a company can do. Because when it comes to D&I, it's all of our responsibility to make change. So that's a little bit about BRIC.
Awesome, Allison. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all that information. It was a great summit. All right, super quickly, all about me. Look, it's my picture with my partner in crime there, Michael Fisk, who is unfortunately not able to be with us today. So he actually wrote some questions for us to answer because he wants to know. All right, so business of creating. We are all about how do you do something? Why do you do something? Let's make projects stronger. Let's make them top quality and get them sold. Yes, please. So basically we are here. So how do you get this information and apply practical action steps? How can you be proactive? And hello, today we're going to learn all about animation. Ladies and gentlemen, we've already done 23 panels. Welcome 24. We can see we've done projects on development, creating rippos and sizzles and other marketing materials, producing, financing. That's a personal favorite. How am I getting the money for all of this? So then we've also done how to do publicity and getting repped, among other things. Go to businessofcreating.org to find out more and see some awesome pictures of people too. Okay, let's get to the nitty gritty, everybody. Our panel overview, animation evolution from pitch to production. We're doing pitching, development, production, marketing, and more. Who are these amazing heavy hitters, everybody? Let's find out. First and foremost, we just heard from the amazing Alison Mann, everybody. Woo! Allison is the VP of Creative Strategy at Sony Pictures Animation. In her role, Allison is responsible for managing the development and talent of the studio's feature film, international, and series-based projects. She collaborates with business affairs, recruiting, and the creative team to foster new relationships with key creatives within the animation industry. Through her 17 years in the industry, she gained experience in TV, film, and gaming while working at Walt Disney Animation Studios, Zynga, Disney Interactive, Paramount Pictures Animation, and Illumination Entertainment. As we know, Allison is the co-founder and the CEO of the BRIC Foundation. Everybody, round of applause for Allison. Next up in our amazing lineup is Jay Francis. Everybody, woo, that's right, Jay. Okay, Jay Francis is the Vice President of Current Series and Diversity at Disney Television Animation. He is responsible for managing the creative direction of production on current series for Disney TVA and working closely with the development and recruitment teams to identify, secure, and mentor diverse creative talent for Disney TVA and Disney Junior. Jay joined Disney TVA in 2007. During his tenure, he has overseen creative direction on a multitude of original animated series, including the 5-time Emmy Award-winning Phineas and Ferb, the Emmy Award-nominated Big City Greens, Amphibia, Pen Zero, Part-Time Hero, Randy Cunningham, Ninth Grade Ninja, and most recently, the Disney Plus original animated adventure, Phineas and Ferb, the movie Candace Against the Universe. Everybody give it up for Jay Francis. Coming in with production, it's Maia Glikman. Everybody, Maia.
Hi.
Hi. Maia is a producer whose body of work spans numerous areas of the entertainment industry, from development to production at networks, studios, and some of the world's leading production companies. Maia has developed both major television and feature projects. Highlights as an executive include several years at ABC Network, Lucasfilm, and Sony Pictures Television. Maia's work has resulted in the acquisition of several original projects, which she created and or conceptualized, including sales to Fox, CW, Netflix, Hulu, Quibi, Disney Plus, Bell, and Spotify. Okay, and as we know, just last week on the 3rd, Maia launched her podcast company, GoKidGo. And this is an interactive, immersive narrative content for kids. And I know she's got a whole series going with the new series, from the creator R.L. Stine. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
As a creative producer, Maia's mandate is the production of high quality content that resonates with today's audience, most especially those that champion female and underrepresented voices. Everybody, a shout out for Maia Glikman.
Thank you.
Okay, our marketing heavyweight, everybody. Let's welcome Amy Conley. Amy is an entertainment film studio executive, formerly at Sony Pictures and Warner Brothers. Amy has over 20 years of experience in digital marketing campaigns with over 200 films under her belt, both live action and animation. Everybody give it up for Amy Conley. And batting cleanup and distribution, everybody, it's Rodney Euler. Clap, everybody. I know. Rodney Euler. Rodney, since 2016, he has served as the Director of Special Projects at GKids, the North American distributor of acclaimed animated films. In his role, he has managed the acquisition process, established special event distribution partnerships, and produced over 15 English dub productions, along with the creation of the annual Animationist Film Festival. He has previously worked in programming and curation with the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, Museum of the Moving Image, New York International Children's Film Festival, and the Institute of Contemporary Arts London, among others. His writing on film and culture has appeared on IndieWire, GQ.com, and Paper Magazine, and more. He has a master's degree in visual anthropology from Goldsmiths, University of London. Everybody, Rodney Euler, and our awesome panel in particular. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're starting at the beginning. And don't worry, I'm going to take this up and down. So it's not just, little boxes we're watching of these amazing experts. Pitching. How am I supposed to pitch this project? So it's this bright, shiny, sparkly thing you must pick up. So what do we need to have? What would be nice to have? What shouldn't you bother with? All right, tell me more. Take it away from our pitching standpoint, everybody.
I'm happy to chime in to start. And actually, I would say before you even get into the what you need, it's more the fundamentals of doing your homework, before you can sort of even get to what you need. You probably need to know who you're pitching to. You need to be aware of the company you're pitching to. Be aware of what is on the air already, what has been announced. Does your show fit their brand? I think there's some homework to do before you even get into the room that is incredibly important, before you even get to what you need and what you should have. So I would start there, just as an FYI.
Makes sense to me. Yeah. What be prepared when you walk in the room. Have the knowledge ready to go. Okay, do your homework, everybody. Proactive tip number one. What else can we talk about with pitching then? So you've done your homework. You've decided that Disney is the spot for you. Disney, Disney Junior, right? So then, or maybe it's Mitchell's versus the Machines Part 2 or what have you, right? So okay, what's going to make it a successful pitch? Do I need the log line, the synopsis, the script? How is it, comparable? How is it different from live action? Because that's more my zone. So I come at it from that point of view.
I think to piggyback off of what Jay was saying, I think it, yes, to do your homework, yes, to know what each studio is kind of looking for, but also how they like to see pitches. So for Sony, for example, less is more. Because we're platform agnostic, we go out and take our pitches out once they're fully developed, and we put together the pitch with the creative. So it's not, and then we take it out to market, and then we hopefully can sell it. So it's different than other companies that might have a platform. So if some places may want more of a fully baked idea, maybe places that are streamers want a full script, they want to see who's attached, they may want to see what episodes look like. It may be really need to be fleshed out, where a place like Sony, where again we want to develop with, where we're creator forward, it's more about the concept, the initial idea. It could literally just be a log line, and then we can help craft the rest all around. And because we're in tune with a lot of the streamers and what they're looking for, we'll figure out how best to market it with that creative, versus you having to feel like you're an island off to yourself. But in general, for me, when somebody's coming in, I think the more more clear and precise, the pitches, that log line, knowing also what else is in the market. So there's the zeitgeist of what comes through in pitches. Like right now, hearing a lot of cats in space, lots of that right now. Hearing lots of Greek mythology right now, a lot of Cupid pitches. So, and also be a consumer, know what's already being put out. So that way, you know how to tweak your project to make it as unique as possible. Maia and I talk often like what separates projects for us when we're hearing them. And I think it's that unique perspective or that authenticity. I think oftentimes people think animation and they think wackadoodle. But for me, when it comes to content, we may ask like, why should this be animated? But my question back is, why not animated? So it's like, animation is a vessel for amazing storytelling. So it's about how does the craft help elevate what you're trying to tell. So I think it's a combination of being really precise and why this is a meaningful story to you, because that not only will resonate with us, but it will resonate with an audience. I think that's also when you're consuming, what separates a good show from not, and why are you watching that? It's the same thing with when we're responding. And I think at the end of the day, remember, we're just people on the other end who have busy lives, and we hear lots of pitches. So again, what is those hooks and the meaning and why the medium? And if you can answer all those, I think that's great. If the pitch is kind of all over the place, you're not kind of setting it up correctly, you may lose people, especially in these virtual times where you don't know if people are multitasking at the same time as listening to the pitch. So, which is not good behavior, but probably happens more often than not.
I think it's probably wise to assume that they are. And honestly, then to me, the challenge would be, okay, why do you need to keep listening to me as opposed to whatever else you also need to accomplish by 5:20?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. To Allison's point, I think, less is more oftentimes, but the less needs to draw you in. It needs to really be something that the executive can't stop thinking about and then comes back to you saying, I want to know more. Not like, oh my God, I've just been thrown so much information. I don't even know what the show is or how to respond. So it's just going to be a pass just by default. So just being targeted and really about why am I the one telling the story and why now is really the two questions that need to be answered in 2021, at least.
yeah. Okay. So why this story? Why me? And why animation as opposed to another medium? It sounds like as well.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing from both of you is that even though you don't necessarily want, here's my 10,000 page script and my 5,000 key art drawings, you still, as the creator, should have that pretty much figured out in your head, but just take the pitch down to, just that base dough kind of thing, if you will.
Yeah. I had somebody once tell me in a really funny way that you need to be overly prepared. So even if you're thinking about a character and this isn't in the script, but you should know what they would have for dinner at any specific chain restaurant. You should just know those random answers because you know that character that well. And the question and answer section after a pitch is really a meaningful place to kind of showcase, I have this all baked in my head, but I'm not opposed to getting your thoughts and being collaborative in the development process, rather than here's a finished product and give me your money and I'm good to go.
That's a shorter meeting. Yeah. That's a short meeting. Yeah.
Some places like that, you get some executives say it, like Netflix, where like, I want the script, I want the actor, I just want it to be easy. But I think being that much prepared allows you to navigate those scenarios in the moment, which can be really helpful.
And Jay, how is it over at Disney then, or other experiences that you?
Well, to reference what Maia said, I mean, anytime I see something that's laminated, I worry because I feel like, that's, I feel bad about change. If we're gonna do something, we got to change that, and everything's laminated. This is finished. No, in all seriousness, I mean, everything everyone said makes sense to us. I mean, the simple answer for us in terms of what we're looking to see, and I think everyone's touched upon this less is more type of idea. Log line and a premise. What is, can you tell us what the show is in 1 or 2 sentences? And that 1 or 2 sentences should spark episode ideas if you're listening to it. Character descriptions, brief but informative. Episode premises, variety of stories, more than just your pilot episode, your finale, or your special episodes. And, some visuals, if you are in a position to provide visuals. I mean, we've obviously taken pitches from writers, and, with all due respect to the writers out there, it's probably best, to unless you're an artist writer, which we obviously in animation, what's unique about us is that you do have that crossover. You do have some artists who are writers, but generally speaking, part of the development process, which we get to in a moment, is to sort of craft out what the world of this show looks like. In success, that's part of the process as well. But I think simple is better. And I think that, I think for us, it's that sort of that creative vision, the clearness of it. What's your show about? What are the themes? What are the core characters and the relationships? When you sort of stay focused in on that and you dig into, especially character, if you dig into that, that's where you're going to, I think, make the most impact in terms of your pitch.
Okay, great. And that actually dives us right into one of our next questions, which was, hang on, let me pull it up here. So we were talking about within the pitch itself, is this somewhere, and we're talking about characters, but diversity and inclusion is obviously a huge, let's look at this. This is important. So is this something you want to be talking about right away within like the pitch when you're first talking with people? Is this something that it presumably also grows naturally within the development process? Where is that, and how is that best brought into the picture?
Are you asking me or somebody else?
I'm asking you and everybody.
Okay.
Everybody.
Well, I will just say, look, I mean, yes, certainly the idea of, creating more diverse shows, more diverse characters, more diverse themes is I think I can speak probably for everyone in this panel that, that there's a focus there. But you know what? You have to be careful with that. It needs to be organic, it needs to be authentic, and it can't feel like, even as that sort of coming on, like it can't be sort of box checking. We're not looking for a diverse property just because we're looking for a diverse one. We're looking for authentic stories. And it's the development executive's job to sort of, go to different places and find where those stories are, that they just don't necessarily come from, quote unquote, the usual suspects. If there is the best stories, the best pitches we get are obviously ones that have a personal connection to the person who has created this show. And so, we're always asking ourselves the question, is this like, why are you the person to tell this story? I think that's a really important question to have. And I don't necessarily know there's a real right or wrong answer, but there should be an answer, to that end. And that's the difference here. It's, the authenticness of the property with, from a point of view that is different from somebody else's, because I won't even have to say it's like a lived experience, but there is something that connects that story to the person who's pitching it, and also then is going to resonate with the audience that we're serving. Our audience is different than, I've been at Disney 14 years. Our audience is different than it was 14 years ago. And so you have to sort of recognize that. And I'm not saying it from the standpoint of you have all the data about what our audience is, but it's just from the standpoint of, what does the world look like today? What does this country look like today? Who is, kids have more control in kids programming. kids have more control over what they watch than they ever have before. My 13-year-old son, he doesn't watch TV anymore. He's either on the computer, he's on his phone, he's on his Xbox. So we're not getting him back. So, I mean, he has choices, and that's the thing. That's the important aspect of this. People have different choices now on how they get their content. So, you know, the more specific you can be, you know, in terms of your show and your experience and what you're trying to say with this show, to me is like the more interesting aspect of a pitch at this point.
Fantastic.
I also think it's about empowering perspectives. So, you know, how we define diversity. Yes, race and gender, sure, but you can come from so many different kind of POVs. And to Jay's point, it's about what resonates to you and what matters to you and what are the stories you want to tell, not the stories you think we want to hear. And I think the more connection you have, the more that we can feel that you have that connection. And I think that's really what's most important.
And from GKids,
Rodney, please.
Yeah, from GKids and Animation as Film, we really specialize in international animation. So we're really looking for, we're really drawn, I would say, to international stories. And I think what's really exciting to us when we look at films is, you know, getting to see not just the stories that might relate to the cultures that the filmmaker is coming from, but also with animation, you're getting a unique visual style often. So you're seeing kind of references that make that unique as well. And from us, which I feel like everyone here probably sees, you know, a ton of films, if where you're telling your story from or your perspective makes it unique, then that's only beneficial from our perspective. So we're really interested in international stories, and in particular, right now looking for a lot of South American content because I just don't see it as much. So it automatically kind of sticks out to me and makes me a little interested.
Okay, Rodney, you just opened the floodgates for all these people. You're going to have so many emails and, you know, LinkedIn requests saying, hey, I got South American stuff. Okay, everybody, you heard it right here. Amy, I want to jump to you really quickly, even though I know, you know, we're looking more specifically at marketing later, but even this early on in the process, and when we're talking about genuine, authentic diversity and inclusion, how does that affect your marketing then? And, you know, I mean, is this might be even way too early, or Allison, when you're saying that you guys like to roll from day one with it and be involved. So it seems to me that all of these departments and these steps very much interact with each other. And is it kind of like the earlier the better? Amy's like, hey, can I sit in on the pitch to do this even, you know?
I can't even tell you how much marketing would love to sit on these pitches for a lot of different reasons. But, you know, I think really diverse point of views and, you know, is great. I think everyone is interested in unique and interesting stories told from different points of view, from different cultures, from different backgrounds. But really in animation for marketing, it's the voice actors that become a part of the marketing machine. And you know, it's always hard when they're in, if you have somebody attached to your film and they say, I'm going to work so hard for this. And then later they come in their sweats, they do their voiceover. And then what's this incentive for them to do it? Because it's not their face on the screen. It's some, you know, robot or I don't know, dinosaur or something. And they have 30 other projects. And that's always a big issue for marketing because at the end of the day, it's those voice actors that you need to go out there and work. So it's that's always been an interesting challenge for us. And I think when you have you really, for us in marketing, it's always great to find somebody who's really passionate about a project. For example, I'll put somebody out who's a great example of this, like a Will Arnett. You know, he's done I don't even know how many Lego movies and he's done how many Batman voices and stuff, but he's super excited and a fanboy, and he wants to go to these places and wants to be part of the marketing campaign because he really just loves these properties. And you can see that when you actually have these films. Sometimes I've worked with some of the biggest names in animation. There are biggest names in the world, and they're not really excited about the animation project. It's just a fee at the end of the day. So those are the kind of considerations that are really important for marketing.
And so do you have Will Arnett's agent's name and number handy by chance?
Oh, I was just getting off the phone with him. That's so weird.
I literally was just looking it up.
We're all
I'm
gonna
dealing
get
with
Will
that.
Arnett.
Truly, for the podcast company, we have an animation element to it because they're all kind of animated cartoon badges and stuff. So obviously,
I love it.
it's for kids, and that's the world that lives in, like Pixar for your ears. But that's been our biggest hurdle, is finding talent that really wants to talk about it and really wants to get out there. And it's a lot of people who are kind of excited about the fact that their own kids would hear them as characters. So you have to be a little strategic in like, what's the right attachment? Because if it's somebody who just has a huge following online or something, you might get the most unenthusiastic, show up in your sweats, not going to improve this photo kind of attitude. And it's like, oh no, we have such a happy family environment group, and this one person's kind of making this really hard. And it's a really important element.
And I will say to that point, I think that's been one of the big things that happened within the industry in the past 10 years or so, is casting influencers, is trying to find people with huge followings. And when I was at Sony, for example, we were, I was pulling names for some of these possible animation parts. And at the end of the day, it was the same question: is, are they excited about the project? Will they participate?
Yeah.
And, what's interesting is a lot of these influencers actually, they will get a contract from production. I'm giving you way behind the scenes now. They'll get a contract from production, and not included that part for, that contract is all the marketing they're going to do. So they come back to marketing, they go, hey, guess what? I'm making this up, 10 million followers. I need $1 million to promote this movie.
Yep.
And we're like, you got to be in an amazing movie. There's no more money. So these are the kind of conversations everyone should be having at the beginning, because it really becomes a challenge.
Okay, I love you're saying you're going deep dive. Yes, please. These are the things that we don't understand. Oh, didn't occur to me to have to say, and you must make X number of appearances within this time frame, and you must be smiling,
Project.
Yeah, and be excited about the project. There we go. Okay, well, this is great. Rodney, you're going to get bombarded tomorrow with South American stories. Maia, well, you're going to be contacting Will Arnett's people. So it's all happening here. And we're still only on pitching, everybody. This is fantastic. I'm going to finish that up real quickly, because there was one element, Allison, that you and I talked about briefly that I found very interesting within that, which is when you're doing a pitch, you're often, if you want to have like some images or what have you to help you convey the tone, that you're often using live action images to convey your tone and style and everything, which surprised me because I didn't know this. So I wanted to make sure we mentioned that.
Yeah, I think if you're not an artist, I think trying to figure out like pulling visual references are important. If you have an idea of the direction of style, you can pull visual artistic references, but that's also can be a slippery slope if that person you're pitching doesn't align with your aesthetic. So sometimes having just visual live action visual references can at least help convey kind of a vibe that you're going for, unless you're very sure about your own understanding of visual, like artistic languages, then feel free to include other times where, once there's a project going in development, we may also pull references. We actually encourage live action references when launching artists versus showing them other design references, primarily because the idea is if you're showing them other artists' art to draw like, then you might as well hire that specific artist. So for us, when I'm launching an artist, or if I'm building out a deck and I want a certain vibe, I will actually hire that artist to do the thing that they are good at and get the look that I want, versus trying to get somebody to imitate that visual style.
Makes total sense. But yeah, for like step one, if you just wanted to have something there ready to go for the creator side, who's not, brilliant artist, you could say, hey, here are a couple of quick other images. I loved that was kind of just a different way to be able to go when you're doing your own baby steps. that felt
Yeah.
very empowering to be able to go, oh, okay, I can take this avenue right now as I'm talking about it. And then when the time comes, we can hire a person, whoever, we're looking at. So I really appreciated that extra point. All right. Let me see. And again, I'm doing my best to, share my screen and ask questions and look at the Q&A at the same time, y'all. So I'm a one woman band here. I got the cymbals on my knees as we keep going. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to jump into some development. Jumping into development. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about this, but again, some overall talking points to make sure we cover some stuff. So what happens when we're in development? How long does it last? We talked a little bit about it, but how do we build that inclusive team? And again, we talked a little bit about, diversity as the checkbox versus actually influencing and evolving your narrative. And what are some of the ways to look for talent with differing perspectives? And Jay, you and I talked a little bit about Doc McStuffins, which I think is just fabulous. So, how does having this inclusive team and inclusive storyline, how does that affect your bottom line? So for your brass tacks points, why is that even important for South American stories? Because I'm not South American. Why would I want to do something about South American people? Oh, okay. There are many reasons involved in that. So kind of the overall, what happens in development? How long does it last? And what are we doing with building that inclusive team?
Well, I can start by saying there is no set time frame on how long development lasts, and I think that this shouldn't surprise anybody because the development process is just that. You are experimenting, you are trying different things. There is that there's that point in time when you've tried different things and it's still just not really coming together, and that's when the proverbial probably time to cut bait, because I think there's only so much you can sort of do that doesn't, if it's not sort of flowing, and I use this word a lot, organically, then I think that's the reality of the situation. A pitch is still just a pitch on paper until you then sort of go about executing it. In terms of the question of what happens in development, it's where everything happens. It's where all of the creative decisions are going to be made in a collaborative way with the folks, in the case of myself at Disney, with the creator. The idea is that the creator is the lead in all of this stuff. The executives are not the people who are sort of determining or dictating how the creative should flow. More often than not, the executives are that first sounding board. And again, the responsibility of the executive is making sure that it's hitting on the brand marks. It's hitting on the things that, you as a creator, along with the executive, can collaborate on to sort of move it through the pipeline, right? Because that's really where it comes down to. A good executive is going to be incredibly transparent about the fact that I love this idea, but if I don't feel like I can get it through the gauntlet, so to speak, that development is, then we're wasting each other's time. And I wouldn't want to put somebody through that. Often, it's really hard to say no to people. That's never going to be easy, but there's a certain reality to that. And so, the process of development, depending on where you are in the sort of with the creative POV, determines how fast something in development can move forward. But those are where you're making the decisions on casting, on music, on oftentimes show style. It's often where you're figuring out, I thought it was left, but I think now it's going to go right. And I'm talking from the point of view of a creator. A creator might be finding that just based on the fact that for the first time, he or she is actually getting these questions asked that you sort of need to talk about. I think Maia made a really good point, just in terms of, you need to know your character so well that, You build the scenarios like, okay, your character walks into the drugstore. Go. What happens? You know, what is going to happen there? And that's sort of so telling about your vision for this character and what that character is going to do, the dimensionality of this character. Because, you know, I think for us, ultimately, that is what's going to drive that. I always sort of look at Gravity Falls as an example of this, where having been a development executive for a long time, the pitch of, hey, it's a small town and all these crazy, mysterious things happen and these kids are going to investigate it. And okay, well, Scooby-Doo, Stranger Things, Goonies, like, it's not a unique pitch. Gravity Falls is still sort of that pitch, right? So what makes, you know, from the point of view of any of these things, you know, and relatively all successful things that I've just made, but what makes the difference from those in terms of the ones that make it and the ones that don't? Well, you know, it's the characters. I think the characters, you know, and again, using Gravity Falls as an example, I'd venture to say if you sort of pulled out Dipper and Mabel and put them in some other show or some other scenario, if you're familiar with Gravity Falls and you're familiar with those characters, you will quickly make a bead to that, because that's what you're really connecting into, you know, in terms of what is the driving force behind the show. Yeah, it all needs to come together. It's not just characters, it's character dynamics and character interactions. It's the environment, it's the storytelling, the narrative, obviously. But I think the reality is that, you know, I always look at the idea of a pitch Bible or the development process. If you know more about just if there's more in your pitch Bible, and I'm going back to that a little bit, if there's more in your pitch Bible about the world and the visuals, and there's more, you have more information about your incidental characters than you do your main characters, that's an issue. That's an issue, because that's the heavy lift to me, creating characters that resonate, that are compelling and interesting and funny, just by the fact of how you've sort of given them a point of view. So, but the development process is as long as it needs to take. And at a certain point, you know, so if I'm going to give you a guideline, I mean, I've worked on shows that have been in development for 2 years, you know, and still came out okay. And then there's some that, you know, 6 months, 7 months, and it's just like, you know, just not feeling it, and then no one's really happy with the direction, and, you know, it's just, you can tell, like there's those moments where you can just tell it's like just not going to get over that hump. So I wish I had a more satisfying answer in terms of a time frame, but that's something that I don't think you can really really dictate, you know, length of time.
Well, and frankly, that's the whole point too, because people always, I know myself, I like to be very organized. Okay, we're starting at 4, we're ending at 5:15-ish, you know, but then you go, oh no, it takes a little longer. Well then, okay, note to self, you know, so I just some things that seem so basic as like, well, how long does it take? Oh, it's no real specific 1 year, 6 days and 2 hours, and then you're done. You know, no, it takes as long as it takes. And it depends really how much has already been somewhat developed, you know, that you've already coming in where you're going, here's everything we have. Now let's play around with it and, you know, make a fabulous meringue at the end of it all. So that's.
Yeah, I'd love to just piggyback off that, because I think something that took a while for me to digest as I, you know, have grown in this industry, but I think is really important for the younger people coming up to really acknowledge is, like our backstories of how we got to where we are in our roles, there is no hard and fast, this is how it's done in any aspect of this industry. Depends on, every project is different, and you need to find comfort with the fact that, like, that what is the right word? It's like, it's not a formula. That kind of approach is just not how Hollywood operates. You start with either a great idea, a pitch, a script, talent attached, everything. Like, sometimes it takes a year and a half to find the right talent attachment. I've dealt with that, and then the project moves at light speed. So,
so you got Will Arnett, you got
or it's what's going on in the world. Like, I think, like Ted Lasso, for example, like they kept like developing and taking it out into the universe, and nobody was biting, and then in the last couple of years, that's when like it got picked up. So you could have a fab pitch and great talent attached and great ideas, but it's not resonating with people at this exact time. That doesn't mean you throw your pitch away or you get
100%.
disgruntled over the industry. It's things ebb and flow. So you kind of have to go ebb and flow with it. And the movie Tangled, for example, was in development for a decade with different, the movie Bolt was called something else and was in development. So there's so many like iterations. And I think you also have to be open to that creative collaboration and pivoting and the evolution of projects. Like, yes, you might come up with ideas, but based off of what's happening in the universe, based off of what audiences are kind of jonesing for. Yes, thanks, American Dog. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, I mean, in live action, the best example I like to give, coming from the Sony world, which Amy knows very well, Breaking Bad has the best story of how that show got made. It's so cool. It like, well, not cool. It just shows like you don't give up, you know, like if you have great creative and you really believe in a project. It was passed on, I think, 3 different times just at Sony. You know, the distributors who ended up having it on their air passed on it several times. Our casting, head of casting at Sony said that Jesse Pinkman's character was supposed to be killed off in episode 1. And the audience fanfare was so passionate about it that she kind of put her job on the line and said, I will quit right now if you actually kill off Jesse. The dynamic is what people are feeding off of. So it's also acknowledging, once your product is out there, seeing how the audience fanfare responds, and that'll give you indication of what really is a meaningful element. You know, for animation and sequels, like if there was a character in the first feature that really was a takeaway, like Baby Yoda, you know, who knew that would be a whole thing? And, you know, so that could end up being a spin-off. There's just, I think the best way of operating in this industry is being on your toes and flexible a little bit, you know? Black Lives Matter and, you know, Me Too, even just finessing the why me, why now, and including those kind of responses to how the world is operating really lands with executives. I May Destroy You, Michaela's show on HBO, I believe, game changer in terms of every show that people want to model after. What's your story? What's the show that is going to be like, this writer needed to tell this now? And so it's really interesting to pay attention to those things because it'll help you move that much faster. So don't get discouraged by one, you know, executive who's having a bad day and passed on your project and now you think throwing it away. That's just those attitudes, I think, it's going to kill you in this industry.
So wait for at least 3 people to pass at the same studio. That's your takeaway on that one, right? Amy's like, yes, then cut it and go to Warner Brothers.
Stranger Things 2 had one executive from Sony who championed it and brought it to Netflix and would not stop pushing doors down and saying, I'll put my job on the line. Like, come up with a proof of concept that didn't land. Let's write part of the script. Let's keep at it. So
we need to have that person on a panel. There's no question. I'm going to circle back to you on that. That's my new BFF, right?
But it's just like, stay the course, you know, believe in yourself, believe in the content. And when you're getting good advice, take it, you know, make finesses, just be open.
And there are a lot of great festivals for projects that are in development as well. I mean, we specifically go to Cartoon Movie and Annecy and watch all the pitches for projects that are in development, not necessarily because we know we're going to handle the film next year, but because we want to sort of watch the evolution of the project as it goes on. So we might see a project that we love and sort of tag it as like, okay, in a couple of years, let's circle back and hopefully, you know, this is in a new stage and is further along, but it's really beneficial for us to see sort of the evolution of it. And I think those outlets like Annecy or Cartoon Movie are really helpful for getting group feedback from a variety of different outlets at that stage in particular.
And Rodney, a quick follow-up question. So when these projects are in, you know, earlier stages of development and you're able to take a look at them at some of these, you know, outlets, do you actually reach out to the creators at that point and go, hey, it's looking good, keep working on it. We'd be interested maybe down the line. Let's start that chat now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for us, typically we just look at a finished film for distribution, but if we can start a conversation years ahead and, get a look at the script, or, if they're open, I think a lot of people tend to be open to feedback, which is really nice for us to hear, because, we're looking at it from the eyes of a North American distributor. So if, we can give specific feedback based on that audience, so you can sort of take it or leave it, but it's really nice and it keeps it in our minds for when it is eventually finished.
Wow, I just saw somebody writing in the chat saying, wow, that I feel so glad to hear that, because I know a lot of times creatives, we feel, especially now, we're sitting in our own little bubble in our own little home office with our normal chair and the fridge right there. And so to be able to go, great, I can have an ongoing conversation with, Rodney and or one of his, teammates there at GKids. Wow, that's awesome. Just to be able to go, okay, great, we've got an potential ongoing feedback. I just, I think everybody's hearts just rejoiced to know that was, something that, oh, okay, great. I'm getting some feedback from somebody like all of our panelists. This is what you do. My mother is fabulous, but she's not going to give me the same feedback as y'all, right?
And so, I don't want to break hearts now, but we are a small team, so we can't, we don't have the resources to give a ton of feedback early on, but it's definitely not something where it's not a shut door, I would say. So
okay. It's a jar. Yeah, it's a jar. Yeah, you have to knock, but they'll probably say yes if you knock and smile, right? That goes back to Amy with our marketing of how do you market things? Well, you keep smiling, even if you're the influencer, right? Okay, super quickly finishing one of our points on development. We were talking about how does having this inclusive team and having an inclusive and diverse show, how is that affecting the bottom line? Why is that something to keep in mind? Again, kind of for the panel, I know, Jay, we talked briefly about Doc McStuffins.
Well, yeah, and I would just say to that, it's sort of a sort of basic understanding that, if your audience is broader, then you want your content to be broader. And, I always go, when we're having these conversations, the business side of it, obviously is important. We're all in a business, right? But it's never the lead, because, I sort of focus, and again, focusing on kids, it's really important for kids to see themselves on screen. There's a lot of positiveness, self-esteem issues that come out of that. And it's not even so much and if they see negative stereotypes, then it's this, yeah, that's obvious. But it's also if they don't see themselves at all. So from that standpoint, it's I sort of lean into the right thing to do. And certainly from the standpoint of any company that's going to represent that they're authentic storytellers, well, just to be in that position, to be able to say that, you have to provide authentic stories from all groups, from all experiences, from all walks of life. But on a business side, well, yeah, I think that just from the very standpoint of if our audience is broadly defined with so many different people, then the business side of it is, whether it's the merchandising, whether it's just the ratings, or whatever you're gauging success on, is going to sort of make more sense. And I would sort of go back to the idea of what kids have options to right now. And if they don't find something on your network, on your platform, they're very quick. That's like, well, if it's not here, I'll find it over there. They're making choices. And again, using my son as the example, he's made the choice that he would prefer to be in this zone of short form YouTube content or computer games. The idea of passively watching a Spider-Man cartoon instead of either being Spider-Man or going to the big ticket box office version of Spider-Man is just in his world, and it's just sort of like as a basically a digital native. He just can't, he doesn't want to passively sit around and watch something. So that's a choice that he's making. But if there's no content where a kid is looking at, it's like, and doesn't see themselves, doesn't see their experiences, doesn't see any aspect of who they are on a particular network or a particular platform. All right, then I'm going to go over here and look for it over there, and then you've lost that person, So I think that to me is the sort of broader scope of, how that makes sense. Again, though, I'm going to lean into, you can sort of reference these sort of the idea of diversity, but it still has to come from an authentic place. And I think that, you can make a character look like something, but if that character's not sort of connecting to the heritage or the culture of their race or ethnicity, or again, people with disabilities, I think there's still a whole lot of work to do on that. And then there's these stories that just sort of resonate with everybody. And I think it sort of ties into being just more inclusive in general, in terms of all different, again, experiences more than anything, because when we talk about diversity, and I think Allison made this reference before, it's like, yeah, there's all this sort of the race, ethnicity, and what have you, but there's also social economic status. There's in our world is like ageism. There's a whole host of things that we sort of look at in terms of what that means to the stories that we're telling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just, this is completely kind of a sideways point, but it made me think of this. I was watching the other day, Hidden Figures. Again, I appreciate that's not an animation reference, but to me, it was so compelling to watch because of these characters and who these people were and what they did. So it was all about the story, and it was so naturally compelling to watch that, you're like, okay, I got plenty of other stuff to do, but I want to sit and watch this. I'm into these people and what they did, and it being a true story on top of that, what made it, I gotta watch now. I gotta find out what happened. So not my smoothest segue, but ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about production, because we need to get on to production. But yeah, so that goes again with our compelling real stories being your bottom line on that. So production, okay. I'm intrigued. So I was told one episode is going to take roughly a year from where you're just starting it out to actually, developing it, to delivering it, to here we are watching it on, Saturday morning TV or whenever you're watching it. So how long is this taking? How many episodes? Because you can't, my goodness, that's a long lag time, 1 year between episodes. So how many are we doing at a time? How are you, doing all of this at once? And, again, kind of how are distribution and marketing coming into that as well? Tell me more on the production side.
I used to give tours at Nickelodeon when I started my career. Back in the day, I was like the page of Nickelodeon Animation Studios. So I would give a tour about how animated projects get made. And I always thought of it like an assembly line for a car. Like, instead of making a car, you're making a cartoon. And so we have everything from the start of the concept all the way through the finished product, where then you as an audience get to see it. And then you have everything in between. So you have the development phase. From development, you'll start working with like your pre-production team if you're a creator. And so most of our studios do pre-production in-house and post-production in-house, but the production itself is sent overseas. And so, they're maybe working with studios in Canada, in Asia, Australia, Europe. So all over the world, there's different vendors that all these studios work with. And so the pre-production team will include writers, story artists, character designers, prop designers. Who else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing. And then you have casting, and it's actually been a hot minute since I've been in a TV studio like that. But and then you have And then the post-production side, so you have everybody that's putting together the animatics. So once the storyboards are done, you have everybody putting together the animatics, and that will help check kind of the consistency of the product. And so basically what you're doing through this pre-production phase is putting together a pitch package, or like all your episode package together as the blueprint for that specific episode. And then that's what's sent overseas as the blueprint, so they know exactly how to animate that specific episode. And so they'll have all the character designs and turnarounds, and the storyboards will be very specific in what the shots look like. So all of that is laid out into these blueprints. And then as shots are coming back, then they're starting to get into the editing bays. They'll start working on sound design, music, all of that will start being put together. But at the same time, once that portion of that pre-production is done, they'll start that episode, another episode again. So it's an assembly line of handoffs from one kind of discipline to the next, and it's constantly moving. And you could be doing anywhere, pickups are normally between 7 to 13 or something, depending on if it's a newer show or not. And then I don't even know if syndication is still a thing, but sometimes I think is syndication still a thing, panelists? Like, is that and I know, for example, like streamers like Netflix pick up less. They don't do 3 seasons typically of something, but I think you have to have 23 episodes for syndication or something like that. So that's my as my tour guide time at Nickelodeon. That's how I always described the production process of making an episode and a season.
That's great to understand, because it's so involved, the whole process, with so many different people and elements, and holy cow, it's kind of like the restaurant kitchen. You got your head chef here, and then you got everybody running madly, paddling madly underneath as they're doing their bit of it and then passing it on the line. I love that. Great analogy on that. Amy, I wanted to ask you a bit more about, when do you come in with the marketing of it then?
This is the fun challenge for animation. So unlike live, a regular film, if you will, this is animation films are very challenging to work on from a marketing perspective, because as Allison just laid out, I kind of use a different analogy with using animation when I work on those films, that they bake a pie and they go, here's our pie. It's all done. And you're like, but it's not funny, or this isn't resonating. And they're like, but here's your baked product. Yeah. Enjoy. And so it's a really hard one to kind of say, hey, these jokes aren't landing. Can you rewrite? We need some voice custom animation for things. And that's always the challenge for at least from our side. It takes a long time for these programs to be worked through, for the animation to come in. Unlike when you're working on a regular theatrical film, you might set up a special shoot day with the actors and get some of these materials done. You have to do this 6 to 8 months out. And trying to be funny about the Olympics right now is something that I'm sure people are working on right now, making Olympic jokes, not knowing what's going to happen, but they're trying to shoot this stuff and animate it now for probably something that's happening this summer. So you have to think way ahead, give production enough time to do it. And that's always, it's a hard challenge for us. I will say one thing, that I've worked on so many animated films, and the expectation of animation just keeps getting higher and higher. Mm-hmm. So Jay bringing in Michelle Obama, we didn't even talk about that for Dr. Muffins. But there's so many people expect now big names to be part of this. They expect everything to be very funny. They don't want the big dips in the middle. That second act is always a challenge. They want mind-blowing visuals. They don't want the movie to be too long, because this is a family film. I actually one time was working on an independent film that was 2 hours and 30 minutes. I was like, no one wants to sit through this. So you have to think about the pacing, the way it's going to land with an audience. And if you're not funny, I don't care how beautiful your animation is, No one's going to see it. No one's going to remember it. And there was a executive I worked with, one of my, I won't say which movie it was. The animation was gorgeous, made no money. And it was because everybody just cared about the animation. They were animated. They were all excited about this amazing technology, and everyone just kind of bought into the technology story. That no one goes to see any movie or any show based on technology. So these are the things you have to think about that literally no one was thinking about. That was shocking to me, that the story wasn't great. It wasn't funny. It was, I'll just give you a little hint. You can figure this out. It was about surfing. And I'm like, if you don't live on the West Coast, you're probably not interested in surfing. So like,
a lot of penguins that year, a lot of penguins.
Penguins involved. You can figure that out for yourself. But I think, I know, I'm sorry, people are like writing in. But it's a beautiful film. I just was like, the story wasn't there. So I think really the big piece of all of this is for marketing. It's got to be funny. It's got to be, it has to, like for Spider-Man Into the Universe, I thought was great. It was really, it broke a mold in a different way. Lego broke a mold in a totally different and unexpected way. So when you're thinking about creating these films and you're pitching to these development executives, have that point of view, because that is something that will carry through the entire thing. If you're only pitching based off of an influencer or these little small pieces, they won't add up to your entire story.
Would you say like universal themes are so important? Because I find like, yes. Like even like with when I worked at Illumination, I think what Chris Malandandri is so good at is finding kind of those universal themes, and then just comedy and simplicity. That's all it is. It's comedy, and it's like sweet and subversive. That's always comedy with an edge. It's.
I would agree, because I think what Chris has done so well in Illumination is simple, and he's like, don't overcomplicate it. No one needs to know what we don't have to think about the minions and anything that's an esoteric way. And I think that's what makes it funny, is just that you know what you're getting, and it's going to make you laugh or surprise you, or maybe, Toy Story 3 makes me cry every time, like bawl my eyes out. And it's you kind of go, what just happened to me? I just got so, there's real story and real emotion, and that's great. So look at for those different elements that you can bring in, because when you are marketing a film, people sniff this out so quickly. And I think that's the element that everybody wants to see in their animated films. And kids, to Jay's point, I have a 7 and 9-year-old boy. Attention span is 2 seconds. If they don't, we start watching a movie within 5 minutes and they're not into it, I'm like, wait for it. They're like, huh? They don't, I just had them watch Naked Gun the other day just for fun and for Mother's Day, because I'm an awesome mom. And I was like, it's going to get funnier. Like, it's going to get funny because there's some really great slapstick, but they kept saying, this is so old school, Mom. It's not funny at the beginning. And I was like, where are you coming up with these notes? Like, that's how they think nowadays. It's fascinating. So
I had my kids watch The Last Starfighter this past weekend. Doesn't hold up for them. It doesn't have this.
It's funny nowadays, especially with some of the animated films from the 50s. Yeah, not great. So
not very woke either.
No, definitely not.
I love how, Amy, you brought it even back to when you're talking with, doing your pitching and everything in step 1, where you're like, okay, here are some key elements that I think would be great when we're doing the marketing. And, there's going to be this great hilarious moment when blah, 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 and so says blah, or what have you. So it's, again, it's a sphere. It's not a square or something where it's like step 1 to step 2 to step 3. It's like, no, they all work together. So it doesn't mean that you're going to be the expert in all of it, but you need to show that you've made an effort to go, hey, and I've been thinking about these other elements with it. I'm not the expert in it, but I think this, and this are really going to be key elements when we're starting the marketing of it. So it's showing that you're really thinking of the whole thing, not just, one day. You're thinking of the whole week kind of thing, the whole project. I really appreciated being reminded of that it's kind of never too early to start marketing something.
Well, and I think to Rodney's point, I want to make sure I also address this. One of the huge markets for all animated films is the Latin American community and all of South, there's a lot of people who live in multicultural homes here that don't always speak English. And animation projects are almost always have a very large Hispanic population with that. And if you'll see a lot more nods in to kind of family and multiculturalness and animated films for that reason, just from the box office point of view. And I think it's an interesting, just a thought that is, take it what you want, but that's something that's actually really important in our marketing efforts.
And Amy, thank you. I could not have segued that better myself to talk more about distribution, everybody. So let me share my screen real quick. We're jumping on. So Rodney, so again, I love how we can have these free flowing conversations. We've kind of touched on some of this throughout. So what are some key things that make you say that's the project, we must have it? So you mentioned a few points. I've written them up here. If you want to take it further as far as, does it obviously have that clear audience? Is there something memorable about it? Can you figure out the trailer? Does it have awards potential? And then I love it. You've given me a couple of great examples of the key art we're going to show in a moment. I really appreciated that as well. So can you tell us more about, how to make your project the pretty sparkly thing that, distributors must have?
Sure. And unfortunately, there's not one answer. But I mean, for us, what we're mostly evaluating and what's most helpful for us is as much material as possible. So I'm speaking not from what was mentioned at the beginning, really, but a finished film is really helpful for us. But we get a ton of films. So to click on the film and to watch it, it's really helpful to see materials up front so that I know there was questions about is key art or is a trailer helpful? And I think absolutely. And I would go about it sort of make those materials thinking about who you think would want to watch that film. And it doesn't have to be, kids 12 to 17. It could be, people who like romance. And so if the trailer sort of leans into that and on the poster, you can sort of see, maybe there's a spark of romance in that. I think that's helpful for us to also sort of visualize, because that's kind of our job. For us, it all leads back to marketing to a degree, because we have to find the audience for this film. And so if you can help us sort of understand who that might be, then I think it's helpful for us to watch the film with that in mind. I mean, we'll also be answering those questions ourselves, but it definitely helps in terms of, the quick email read of like, oh, okay, this looks like it's a film for teens who are into fantasy elements. So I think getting those materials across is helpful for us before we even watch the film, which is ultimately how we evaluate the potential.
I like how you included kind of genre as well, because you're thinking, oh, okay, it's people who like animation. No, but this story is actually about romance. It's about fantasy. It's about dragons, whatever it is, it's about gardening. I don't know what, growing Jack in the Beanstalk, whatever it is. So that's, I love that extra additional point that you bring into it, because that wasn't something that I was originally thinking. Oh yeah, and this element too.
Audience for us can be definitely broken down into like genres or interests as much as demographics. And I think that's where I think we see the potential for a broader audience. So if it's, I'll use a love story again, if that's the central core of the story, then I could see that, that could potentially play to adults and families, depending on, the content.
Fantastic. All right. So you were talking a little bit, let me see, about having the near finished film, having a one sheet, having some key art. Can you tell us a little bit more about one sheets and key art and what, hey, this is what really impressed me, kind of a thing?
Yeah. I mean, for a one sheet or a poster, I mean, that's such a huge asset, because it's trying to convey a lot about your film in one sort of graphic or one image. And so that could be an opportunity to sort of showcase, character design, get information about the protagonist just by visuals, hint at sort of the tone, so there's a lot of information you can convey in that, and it might change or it might be altered after it's distributed. But I think it's a really good tool for giving a really quick understanding of a lot of elements about your film that we as distributors will want to know about.
Okay, so
and if you're not, you know, at the stage where you think you can make a poster, you know, key images are really helpful as well. Because again, we can't really watch every film that comes across our table, but if we can see sort of signals about what it might be, I think it's helpful for us to sort of understand the potential.
Sure. Yeah. Something that's going to grab your attention quickly to make you say, yes, let me have more. So I love these examples you sent me. So you were saying these you've cleaned up or what have you a little bit, but these are pretty close to what the filmmakers actually sent you. And then you kind of tweaked them a little bit, I believe. But you were telling me that these were very good examples because the filmmakers had gone to, you know, this much effort and done such an excellent job. Can you give us a little bit more about why these are like, that's the one? And y'all, in a moment, I'm going to put links to both of these in the chat so you can look at them at your leisure later.
Yeah. And we're a very small independent distributor, so I'm sort of viewing it from this lens. But I think what was nice about these sort of illustrating what I've just been talking about is sort of, I think these posters sort of not just visually grabbed us, but sort of effectively conveyed the tone of the film. So, and they're very different. So on the left, it's sort of a teen sort of slacker comedy. On the right, it's sort of a sweet sort of family film about a dog. And both, you kind of understand the visual styles of these films immediately upon looking at them. So while they're not the most commercial art, I think they convey a real personality for each film. And so these are just examples of posters or key art that we didn't have to change that much, which to me just means they were really effective from the start. And I don't know if these filmmakers, how much of a hand they had in the actual creation of them, but whatever they presented to us was really effective in that goal.
Fantastic.
I just want to say, if you're really scrappy, check out Canva if you're not using that to create some art, or Fiverr is a great website for, you know, you can hire an artist to make some kind of vision of this for your vision for your project.
Oh,
and again, a few stills or images from the animation, if it's a completed film, is helpful as well. So I know not everyone has the means to sort of hire a graphic artist.
But that would be, you know, if you can, that would be a good thing to be doing, basically.
Yeah, it's a huge sales tool.
There you go. You just made yourself rise to the top here. So if you can do all of those extra things, which is, you know, kind of true no matter if it's animation or live action or live event or what have you, the more you can be the shiny object, the better you're off you're going to be. Okay, let me see. I'm putting this in the chat right now, everybody. And I'm putting in the links for both of those. Hang on. I want this to go to everybody. Panelists and attendees. Here we go. Okay, so those are the links to the key art for both of those. And in a few moments, ladies and gentlemen, we're also going to, you know, be putting a link in there for our wonderful final draft survey, etc. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are hitting, you know, kind of the end zone here. And our next one, everybody, I'm just like, I'm bowled over by how much info we're getting here. So items that we can work on. We've kind of talked about this throughout, you know. So while we're socially distancing and being responsible, we did talk about a lot of this throughout, but is there anything specific that we should go, oh my gosh, don't forget to do this right now? You can really be focusing on that log line, on some key moments from marketing, on why you're doing the show, why, you know, it's important right now, who the audience is. Jay, you made an excellent point when we were talking the other day. Hey, everybody's working from home for the most part. See if somebody wants to have a virtual coffee. I was like, yeah, okay. Because it didn't occur to me to say, Jay, let's have a coffee.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is, and when you had asked me the question in our pre-meeting, I said, look, I didn't know anything differently, because if you're a writer, you need to write. If you're an artist, you need to draw. I mean, that's what gets you better, right? The thing that I've sort of noticed, and I think it's maybe more anecdotal than anything, but the just a sort of theory of mine is that, people working from home, their attention spans are not always focusing on work because they're at home. There's things that they're juggling. And just from the standpoint of the working at home aspect of, well, let me go visit my social media for a little while. No one's over. You're not even feeling, not that your boss is even looking over your shoulder, but now you absolutely know that that boss is not looking over your shoulder. You just find yourself sort of on social media. And, it was just my thought that, there's isolation for everybody. Animation has always gotten the pat on the back during this whole time because we were able to sort of go through and do this. And I think all of us who work in animation are blessed and grateful for that. But the reality is that, I remember reading stories really early on in the pandemic about, is this the new normal and more efficient and everything? And it was just like, whoa, hold on here. It's just like the challenges are real and hard. And any creator worth their salt is going to tell you that, yeah, we were able to do it. Physically, we can make it, but I will compare a pre-pandemic episode to one created during the pandemic, and I can point out the 50 things that I would have changed that would have made this better from their standpoint. I think it speaks to their professionalism and the fact that they're so good at their jobs that an audience wouldn't necessarily see that. I think the biggest thing that you can do, and I do that sort of through LinkedIn. That's really the only social media I use, is reaching out. People are trying to just find information, sure, but they're just also trying to figure out a way to connect. And I think we're no different. I mean, I have a wonderful family, loving kids and what have you, but there's that sort of, what you miss and what you're not getting is that sort of collaboration that you're used to in the animation space. I mean, that's what makes this industry so wonderful. I think it was Allison who sort of used the assembly line sort of version. That means you have to wait for this person in order to do this. That person has to wait for, and so you're almost forced to collaborate. Even if you didn't want to, you have to do that. So I think, reach out and say hello to somebody that you're interested in working at their company. Or the worst that can happen is you don't hear back. Not everybody is on. They may have a profile on these different social platforms. They may not be using it, or they're just not interested, or they may say, sure, let's set something up. So that would be my just one piece of advice, is this is an opportunity to try to expand your network and more than just network, build relationships. I think that's a better way to describe it than networking. Building relationships, I think, is really key.
And I think to that point, realizing that who you're emailing, we're just humans. And we could be having good days or bad days. We could be coming from a place of trauma. But I think, remembering, even for me, I have twin 5-year-olds. I've been trying to have a career in a pandemic right now. And I used to be so good at emailing and getting back to people. And I suck right now. And I suck and I can't organize myself. I'm not the best version of myself. I don't think we all are. So if you have to nudge somebody and say, bump, I don't know if you saw this email or this LinkedIn message. I realize that you might be slammed, but when you get a chance, I would love to hear from you. I would just realize that we're all just doing the best that we can under all these circumstances. And it's really hard to navigate. So I know it's hard when you're on the other end and you're waiting for a call back or to hear about a job, or I know we're all in this kind of limbo place, but just remember, we're just people with opinions. And yes, we do hold some keys to the car, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to navigate just like you. So I think that's just come from a place of empathy. I always come from a place of empathy and goodwill and good intentions. And unless somebody really wrongs me, I just realize, that everyone's just What's so funny about it? And you're just like, I feel like
I want to piggyback off of everything you're saying, because like I have to say, Allison and I haven't met in person yet, but she's one of my closest friends through this pandemic. And it all started with, kind of like asking my friends, like, who are some other like strong, badass women who are kind, who I can just have like a moment with, not even talk work, but just like feel like I'm not alone. And, I'm going to pull up my child, but like, this is my quarantine partner, not a human. So, you kind of have these moments where you're overthinking and you're feeling like insecure and weird about certain things, when don't feel shy about it. Again, it's about the delivery. Just reach out and you never know what you're going to get, but just be open to kind of collaborating, and just knowing that, to Allison's point, we're all dealing with our own shit. We're all human. We're all, we all once were you. So just know that, there are some really kind people in this industry who are just really generous. And so don't let one bad experience kind of squash the overall. And I've been there. So
I think to that point, there's very kind people, but also realize, do take some of the notes. So I think that's the big thing that I see a lot on the marketing side is Jay, Allison, Rodney, they will all give you notes that, hey, maybe you can make this part a little funnier. This pace needs to happen. And sometimes people get so set as a creator on, this is my vision, and this character has to go to the mall and walk around the shop for 30 minutes because it's a very moving part of the story. And you're like, it's really not. So make sure you listen to them and actually take the notes from these seasoned executives that work on a ton of different projects that you can actually learn from them. And I think that is one of the only things that I can say from, I have seen creators and people who are pitching, get in development, and then when things don't work out, that's a lot of times what I find is actually the case. They're not willing to make the changes. They don't want to be collaborative. And so please take their collective wisdom and use it. And you think of it as a resource. I also say, I have a lot of friends who are writers. And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard is they say, give your friend who doesn't have a sense of humor your script and have them read it. And that always helps, because that's where, if they don't find anything funny, that's good news. If they find some things funny. So think about things in a different way and how you can approach, because I think that is the two pieces that I would definitely say from just their side of the aisle, I have seen be a problem. On the marketing side, watch TikTok, get familiar with Instagram. If you are trying to build yourself as a writer, director, build an audience, find the other people you can follow, see what they're doing. Make sure you're following those tips as well.
That was great. I have one line to add. I have one line to add to what Amy said, because that is a super valid point. Is in terms of notes, I would say don't ever be like, I'll take whatever note you just gave me. Just tell me what to write. That's a turn off. And then also of like, no, I'm not doing that. The best takeaway and executive, this is what I've loved seeing on the executive side, is all you have to say is, let me think about that. That's an interesting point. Let me think about that and digest it. And at least let the executive feel like you are interested in at least entertaining their thought. Because we don't give notes just to give notes. It's work. We give it to make your project better, knowing what we know in terms of the buyer relationship. So all I have to say is that's great advice, is just be open, but don't go too far into one direction of whatever you want or absolutely no.
Yeah, and on the festival and distribution side of things, we have to say no to a lot of projects, and it's not as much as is this a good film or a bad film. It's, are we the right home for it? Would we have success with it? And that's finding an audience. Does it fit within the lineup that we have, which may or may not be announced? So I would say, we think about all these things when we have to pass on a project. So I wouldn't take it personally or as a sign of creative failure or success. It's just, when we say no, it's often just, it's not the right time or place for us with that film. So I don't want people to get discouraged if they hear those no's sometimes.
Okay, the door is ajar for you, huh? So and we all remember that, and we all remember the dog. Those are the takeaways from the panel right now, you guys. See it? Yeah, I love it. Amy's doing her own marketing right there. She just casually just happens to have a dog to lift up right there. I'm like, running to find my stuffed Grover so I can stay with animation, man. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, it breaks my heart that it is 5:30. It breaks my heart. I knew we were going to have a 3-hour panel. I'm so glad we all agreed, everybody. This is fantastic. Before you go, everybody, please take our survey because, hey, shout out not only to our wonderful panelists, and our wonderful Writers Guild co-host. We have 4 full Final Draft downloads to give away. They've got Final Draft 12, brand new. It's another shiny, sparkly thing that you need to pick up. It's fabulous software. We all know this. We have 4 of them to give away if you fill in the survey. And I'm going to stop my share to make sure I can send that to everybody right now. And that is the link there in the chat. So ladies and gentlemen, fill in our survey, let us know. And, part of the survey is what else do you want to learn about? Because knowledge is power, ladies and gentlemen. I am so just like, wow, what an amazing group of people. Jay Francis, Rodney Euler, Amy Conley, Maia Glikman, Allison, Mann, and my Writers Guild amazing partners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish we were in person so we could all take a bow. You guys are amazing. Please, let's do Animation Evolution Part 2, okay? Even deeper dive. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this a wonderful panel, a wonderful evening. I cannot wait to do this again. Thank you so much.